Om Sarvadharmasthapakas Sarvadharmaswarupakah Acharyanam Mahacharyo Ramakrishna Yate Namaha. We are studying here Sri Ramakrishna, the Great Master, second part, as the spiritual aspirant or struggler or sadhak. And we are in the 8th chapter, the heading being, the correct heading being, the remaining things about the first 4 years of Master Sadhana. And we have come into incidents regarding Haladhari. Thakur's cousin brother, name was Ram Tarak, but Thakur used to call him Haladhari. And he was there in the Kali temple, and the connection was that Thakur was doing some Hatha Yoga sadhana. Hatha Yoga sadhana, Thakur has explained. I'll tell you a little small thing about it. About 4 or 5 years back, when I was in Belgaum, the university there started a new faculty of yoga. And they invited somebody from the ashram for the inauguration, and the ashram sent me. Now at that time, I wanted to know the meaning of this word Hatha Yoga. So Hatha is the adjective, Yoga is the word. I opened 2 standard reference books, Apte's Modern English Sanskrit Dictionary and Monier-Williams Sanskrit Dictionary. In both of them, about 30 meanings are given to the word yoga, in both of them. And not a single out of that words, 30, could fit in or could have any connection with this word Hatha Yoga. So, the only way to think of Hatha Yoga, I understood, is what Sri Ramakrishna has told us. And that is, yesterday we read that let us make our body strong first. Then we'll go to Rajoga. So, it is something preliminary to Rajoga. And the aim and end of that is physical health and longevity. Nothing more. Nothing more. No direct connection with spirituality. Another point is, Patanjali's Rajoga itself, I found, is not a complete science. Judging from the Vedanta point of view, there may be something more to be done. Because it is based on Sankhya philosophy, which is imperfect itself. Then, and that is called Ashtanga Yoga. Yoga having 8 angas does not mean limbs, but steps. And Hatha Yoga is called Shadanga Yoga. Yoga having 6 steps. So which are the 2 steps missing? If we compare them, then we find that first 2 steps are missing. First 2 steps, Yama and Niyama, are the total reorientation of mind and our attitude to make it start on a spiritual journey. Now, if those two steps are missing, it is a palace without a foundation. So, though the other steps sound similar, they will be only physical. Anyway, so, and we find here Sri Ramakrishna has practiced it to tell us not to practice it. So, in another place, though not here, in Gurubha we had read about Yogananda Swami, and there we had find Sri Ramakrishna is telling, if you practice Hatha Yoga, your mind will be riveted to body. And so, in a way, that is not possible to do this or do that, which is excellent here, but in a way, that will be harming the spiritual effort. That comments I wanted to make. Now, so Thakur had done it to show us, please don't do it. So that we will ask him, you have not done it, then how do you know about it? So he has done that also to tell us not to do it. Everything in Thakur's life is very practical. Now, Haladhari had some immoral habit. And people used to talk about him, but they could not talk to his face because there was a popular understanding that if Haladhari gives a sharp or something, then that will come true. Thakur was not afraid of those things. So Thakur told Haladhari that people are talking like this. Haladhari became angry and Haladhari said that you are junior to me and you are talking like that. So blood will come from your mouth. And at that point Haladhari could not be appeased to withdraw the curse. After some days, the blood started coming. And then everybody, including Haladhari, came and started weeping. And Thakur could not stop that blood coming. So some other sadhu who was a knower of these things, he was present, as the providence would always provide the necessary thing in Thakur's life. So he saw and he said that it is a good thing. Because you are practicing Hatha Yoga, the blood was going to your brain. And had it reached there, you would have attained Jada Samadhi, from which it is impossible to come out. But God wants some work you have to do, and so the blood has come out. Up to that we are read. Now, because Haladhari's connection has come there, so some more points between Haladhari and Sri Ramakrishna have to be discussed here. That is the context for today's class. And we are in now reading the para 13 of 8th chapter. Haladhari's views regarding the master changed again and again. That means changed again and again means sometimes higher, sometimes lower. There was an element of sweet mystery in the master's behavior towards Haladhari. We have said before that he was the master's uncle's son and was older than he. He came to Dakshineshwar probably in 1858 and was appointed priest to worship Sri Radha Govinda. He held that post till sometime in the year 1865, 7 years. Therefore, he lived at Dakshineshwar for the second 4 years of the master's sadhana period and for more than 2 years after that. So we are talking of now second period. And had the opportunity of knowing him intimately, but he could not form a definite opinion of the master's high spiritual state. Haladhari was a man devoted to the rites and practices ordained in the scriptures. So level was karma. He therefore did not like the master's lack of regard for his dress and sacred thread at the time of ecstasy. They used to drop down. He did not like that. He could not understand that there is a state above this. Though he had studied many books, but that it comes to practical life, he had no idea. He thought that his younger cousin had become mad or non-conformist in ritualistic conduct. Non-conformist, it does not conform to the ritualistic prescribed conduct. He went sometimes the length of telling Hriday, he could not directly tell Thakur at that time. Hriday, he gives up his wearing cloth and the sacred thread. That is very bad. It is due to a great accumulation of the results of virtuous actions in previous births that one is born in a Brahmin family. Yet he considers the state of a Brahmin to be a trifling thing and wants to give it up. Has he realized a state high enough to do this with impunity? Hriday, he has some faith in your words. So you should keep an eye on him that he may not behave thus. It will be proper to restrain him from doing all this even by binding him hand and foot. Again, he was charmed to see the floods of tears flowing from the master's eyes at the time of worship. His wonderful joy on hearing songs praising the glory of the divine, and his extraordinary eagerness for the realization of God. During all sadhana, he thought all those states of his younger cousin were certainly due to an infusion of divine spirit. They were not seen to come otherwise on human beings. Infusion of divine spirit, what we call avesh of some gods. Haladari became surprised to see and hear all these things. So what had happened that also? And sometimes said to Hriday, Hriday, you must have felt some extraordinary power in him. You would not otherwise have served him so faithfully. So Hriday was absolutely faithful servant. Though Hriday may not understand that, but he was absolutely faithful servant. Haladari gave up his high regard for the master the moment he sat to discuss the scriptures with his pinch of snuff. So some people have this habit. Do you know this? For any serious thought, they require tobacco in some form or the other. I have seen some people that when they want to think seriously, they take a cigarette. Some people, like Haldari, tobacco in the form of snuff. That is tobacco only. In Bengali, there is a fine idiom about it. Buddhir godaye nasya diya. That means the brain is here. Its root is somewhere here. So there one is that as if snuff is going. So it to stimulate the buddhi. And he had some knowledge about those scriptures. So when he started a discussion about that, now only his buddhi is working. His other receptivity is closed. And at that time, he used to be filled with ego. And then, when he is filled with ego, he could not understand Thakur's anything. Always assailed by doubts, Haladari's mind could not come to any assured conclusion about the master's real state and kept oscillating between regard and pity, if not hatred, if not despise. This word hatred does not suit that element at all. Hatred is like enmity, but here grina, that is despise. pity if not hatred. The master said, Haladari became charmed to see me at the time of worship in the temple and said on many occasions, Ramakrishna, I have recognized your real nature. To that I often replied jokingly, beware lest you should get confused once more. He said, you can by no means throw dust in my eyes again. There is surely a charge of divinity in you. I have understood it thoroughly this time. I heard his words and said, very well, let me see how long this conviction lasts. When, however, Haladhari, after finishing the service in the temple, took a pinch of snuff and started a discussion on the Bhagavata, the Gita, the Adhyatma Ramayana, or some other books, just some smile came to my room, mouth, the Bhagavata, because there is an A in the end. If there is no A in the end, it becomes Halanta, Bhagavat. So, in English translation, A must be put at the end. Now, in South India, A means A. So they like to pronounce very emphatically Bhagavata, Ramakrishna, Adhyatma Ramayana. So I pronounce in what I think is the correct way. But smile came to me, remembering what I hear from the South Indians. Started a discussion on the Bhagavata, the Gita, the Adhyatma Ramayana, or some other books. He became immediately a different man on account of egoism. I then went, Thakur is telling, I then went there and said, I have realized all the states of which you read in the scriptures. I can understand all these. No sooner had he heard it than he said, indeed, you are a big fool. Is it for you to understand all these things? I said, I say in truth, one who is within this, showing his own body, explains everything regarding the one of whom you spoke just now. You are speaking of the reality, and within me, that reality is manifested, so that itself tells me. Hearing this, Aldari got irritated and said, hence, queer, big fool. Oh, ja, Murkha Pathakar. Okay. Okay, some exclamatory words. Hence mean get out. Queer, big fool. Kalki in the Kali Yuga. Which scripture speaks of an incarnation of God except Kalki in the Kali Yuga? So he is bound by those 10 avatar kalpana that has limited his mind already. You have become insane and so you think as you do. I laughed and said, did you not say just now that there would be no confusion again? But who would give ear to all that then? This happened not once or twice, but on many occasions. One day he saw me sitting naked on a branch of a banyan tree of the Panchavati and passing urine. that when he was practicing that Hanuman Bhav, then this used to happen. He became thenceforward absolutely certain that I was possessed by a ghost who had been a Brahmin in his mortal life. Brahma Daitya it is called. Brahmin becomes ghost, then he behaves like that. Similar is not same. The master taught Haladari the truth about Kali when the latter said she consisted of tamoguna. That was another misconception. Many people have this misconception common which Haladari had. And this topic has come here, and Saradananda Swamiji has brought this topic here to tell us some important truth of spiritual life. Kali is tamoguni. That is quite a widespread conviction. And people worship Kali only when they want to do some black magic or anything. Or even murder, Daikote Kali. So Kali has been identified with negative things in many men's mind. But Thakur's Kali or Thakur's concept of Kali, or you may say what the real meaning of Kali is completely different. And for that, Saradananda Swamiji has brought this topic here. Because this Leelaprasanga is not only Thakur's biography, it is a compendium, explanation of all the scriptures of the world. And so my teacher said, Leelaprasanga is the greatest scripture and the scripture of scriptures. Swami Vivekananda said, Thakur's life is a searchlight in which we can read all the scriptures. So to understand the real meaning of Kali, in comparison with what people think, we are coming to this topic. We have spoken of the death of the son of Haladari, who was a follower of Vishnu. Since that event, he had the conviction, so he had a reason also. He did not like the Bali. Now all these things are symbolically very important. But due to his Vaishnava type of mind, he could not appreciate it. And he came for a job and he could not do it properly. And so he got a vision that Kali said, I will kill your son, and it happened. Since that event, he had the conviction that Kali consisting of tamoguna. One day he went to the extent of saying to the master, can there be spiritual progress resulting from the worship of a deity consisting of tamas? Why do you worship that goddess with so much care? He could worship it for job. He had to give it up because of a narrow conviction. The master heard this, but did not then give him a reply. But pained to hear his chosen ideal slander, he went to the Kali temple and asked the mother of the universe with tears in his eyes, because he has more faith on the mother. Mother Haldari, a scholar, well versed in the scriptures, says, thou consistest of tamoguna. Art thou truly such? When he was told the real truth about it by the Divine Mother, he was filled with joy and ran immediately to Haladari, jumping then straight on his shoulders. He said again and again in an excited voice, you say mother consists of tamas, is it so? Mother is all. She has become the three gunas, and again she is the pure sattva guna. Pure sattva guna you may say, or beyond three gunas you may say, and that is pure sattva guna. And she is the ashraya, or she has become Trigunamayi. So transcendent, immanent reality, that is what is Kali. Haladari then had his inner eye opened as it were by the words and touch of the master, because it touched him and he spoke in that excited voice. who was in ecstasy. Seated then in the worshipper's seat, Haladari accepted heartily what the master said, and having seen the manifestation of the Divine Mother herself in him, he took a handful of flowers mixed with sandal paste and offered it with devotion at his lotus feet. Shortly after, Hriday came and asked him, "Do you not say, uncle, that Ramakrishna is possessed by a ghost? Why then did you worship him?" "I don't know why," replied Haladari. "He came back from the Kali temple and astonished me in such a way that I forgot everything and saw the light of God in him. Whenever I go to Ramakrishna at the Kali temple, he produces such feelings in me. Oh, that bewildering incident. I cannot understand anything." Although Haldari saw divine light in the master over and over again, he, when he took snuff and sat for scriptural discussion, got intoxicated with the egoism arising from scholarship. So that is the danger in scholarship. Egoism comes because you feel separate from others, because you feel your buddhi is better than others, and became his former self again, like the rat of the story Punar Mushiko. So you have to understand the story. There was a sage, and a cat was chasing a mouse or a rat. So the rat ran near the sage or on his lap, and the sage could understand that he is afraid of that cat. So he, by his power, said, "May you become a cat." So he became a cat. Then he was chased by the dogs. So the sage said, "May you become a dog." Then he was chased by fiercer and fiercer animals, by lion. So the sage said, "May you become a lion." Now when he became a lion or tiger, he, because of that, nature changed. Not only body, but the mind changed. So he wanted to eat the sage himself, forgetting his beneficiary. So the sage said, "May you become mouse again. Punar Mushiko Bhava." And that happened. That was due to that sage. But in a similar way, by Thakur's touch, the Haldari's mind used to rise higher, but by his own nature it used to fall down. Now some more points with Haladari, very important point. Because Sri Ramakrishna's attitude was that everybody is big, everybody is Brahman. And he is a scholar. Puzzled by Haldari's scholarship, the master was assailed by doubts, but was blessed with a vision and demanded remain in Bhavamukh from the Divine Mother. So that is his first Bhavamukh. 3 times he has got that mandate. So one of them is this. We had mentioned somewhere in the beginning, the 3 times. Third was after his Nirvikal Samadhi when he wanted 6 months to remain in that. Second time, it had appeared like Brahma and advised him to remain like that. The childlike master, confused sometimes by Haldari's scholarship, childlike because he had no ego. He did not think of himself as special somebody. That is the meaning. Ran to the Universal Mother for her opinion on what should be done. One day we are told he proved that the divine experiences in ecstasy were all untrue. That is Vedanti's idea of bhavas. Wrong Vedanti, narrow Vedanti's wrong ideas about bhava. He proved that the divine experiences in ecstasy were all untrue, proved by reasoning, and pointed out with the help of the scriptures that God was beyond existence and non-existence. Sat, Asat, and beyond. What is the meaning? If we say God exists, then we remain separate. If we say God does not exist, we are separate. But God is all, so He is beyond. Great was the master's perturbation. Narrating this incident, he said later, thought that all the divine forms I saw and the divine words I heard during Bhav Samadhi were then all a delusion. Mother I saw had indeed deceived me. Extremely anxious, I cried with the feeling of a wounded love and said to the mother, should thou, mother, deceive me so because I am unlettered and ignorant? Abhimane, Abhimane, wounded love. Okay. Anxious by wounded love. व्याकुल হইল এবং অভিমানে কান্দিতে কান্দিতে মাকে বলিতে লাগিলাম, okay. Anxious, I did not feel is a suitable word. Extremely, I just now read, Vyakul. Here, extremely restless, disturbed. Restless is the word for Vyakul here. Extremely restless. I cried with the feeling of wounded love and said to the mother, shouldst thou, O mother, deceive me so because I am unlettered and ignorant? That cry and agony would not stop. Thakur's everything is intense. I sat and wept in the mansion. When the owners used to come to Dakshineshwar, there was a separate building for them to stay. That was called in Bengali Babuder Kuti, Kuthi, Koti, and that is called the mansion. That is north of, there is a compound like in which the temples are there, and just north of that is that mansion. I sat and wept in the mansion, and it was open freely for Thakur always. What I saw sometime afterwards was this is that Brahma appearing. Oh, take it. This is the first time. Second time, mother came in the form of some Ramani, and she told him like that. That is the another occasion. What I saw sometime afterwards was a fog-like smoke rising suddenly from the floor and filling some space in front of me. I saw later in that smoke a beautiful living face of golden complexion with beard reaching to the breast. It appears that Brahma appeared like that. That figure looked steadfastly at me and said with a profound voice, "My child, remain in Bhavamukha." And we understood Bhavamukha in detail. That is just below the Nirvikalpa Samadhi and source of everything in this world, Ishvara position. My child, remain in Bhavamukha. That figure repeated those words thrice and immediately dissolved in the palm. Remain in Bhavamukha, remain in Bhavamukha, remain in Bhavamukha, like that it assured, and then vanished. And the fog like smoke also vanished into the void. When I had that vision, I got back my peace of mind. So, doubt about visions and got solved by vision, because that are true, real true. One day the master himself described this event to Swami Premananda. The master said that the same doubt arose in his mind. Here we are getting all the three instances. Once again, when he remembered those words of Haladari, second timely by remembering the words of Haladari. Sitting for worship, said our master, I cried and pressed mother importunately for a solution of the problem. Mother then appeared near the worship jar in the guise of a woman named Rati's mother and said, do remain in Bhavana. So Rati's mother was a Vaishnava devotee, and mother appeared in her form and told him this. Again, when Totapuri, the traveling teacher, left Dakshineshwar after imparting to him the Vedantic knowledge, and the master dwelt in the Nirvikalpa plane of consciousness continually for 6 months, he heard in his heart of hearts. So that was not an objective experience, because he himself has a reason to that, and there he got that. He heard in his heart of hearts at the end of that period the incorporeal voice of the Divine Mother. So it is not through a form, through the very consciousness which Master himself had reached. Voice of the Divine Mother remain in Bhava. So here is the place. All three incidents are told. First, Haldari said, and through Bhava he got that. Just I commented. Because that was not permanent, na? By remembering Haldari, again he got that doubt. And again Mother reassured him. And the actual firmness came only when he got the knowledge through Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Then no further question of doubt. How long Haladari stayed in the Kali temple? Haladari lived for about 7 years in the Dakshineshwar temple. Therefore he saw with his own eyes all these. The sadhu of perfect knowledge, behaving like a ghoul. One sadhu, Gyani, full knowledge, came to Dakshineshwar. And appearance was like a ghoul, pishacho. No cleanliness at all. And the people did not like his appearance. He wanted to sit with the beggars for getting food. Beggars drove him out. He went where the dogs were eating the remains, and with the dogs, putting a hand on the dog, he ate that uchishtam. The dog did not react. And Thakur says, standing before the Kali temple, he chanted stotras in such a way that Kali herself was joyful and dancing. Thakur told Hriday that, see, he is a man of perfect knowledge. So, Haldari has seen that. Therefore, he saw with his own eyes all these. The sadhu of perfect knowledge behaving like a god. The Brahmani, he has seen Brahmani. And Brahmani, through Brahmani, Thakur is doing Tantra sadhana. The holy man of the Ramayana denomination named Jatadhari, from him Thakur got that Ram Dada. We'll get all this. And we have heard about this in the Guru Bhav. And Sri Totapuri, coming into Dakshineshwar one after another, we were told by the master himself that Haladari and Totapuri sat occasionally together and read the Adhyatma Ramayana and other scriptures. Adhyatma Ramayana dealing with Advaita. The above mentioned events concerning Haladari occurred at different times while he was in the Dakshineshwar temple, but we have told the reader all of them here together for the sake of convenience. That is why he has mentioned how many years and all that is not for telling history, but that these events happened at different times and together he has put here to make us perfectly understand. A discussion on the divine inebriation of the master. So, now independent of Haladari, Saradananda Swamiji wants to discuss that mad-like behavior, but out of divine consciousness. So, Divyonmad, that he wants to discuss and explain it to us separately. It is clear beyond doubt from the discussion of the master's life of sadhana so far that although he was then considered mad by the ordinary people because they do not know, so anything different from normal they call it abnormal. But madness is subnormal. Abnormal is actually above normal. So far that although he was then considered mad by the ordinary people, he was in fact not so. Neither did he suffer from any disease or derangement of the brain. Neither subnormal nor a derangement of the brain nor any physical disease. An intense eagerness for the realization of God arose in his heart. He could not then control himself. So something lower arising and we try to control. Something higher arising and we try to control. And it is beyond control. He could not then control himself on account of the impulse of that eagerness. People said that he had gone mad, for with an intense eagerness for the realization of God, incessantly consuming his heart, he could not mix with people or spend his time laughing and weeping over ordinary matters. So that is what people expect, and he could not do that. And who can do so? So he is telling it is not only master, in such a state it cannot be done. When the anguish of the heart transcends the normal power of endurance, who can control himself? And who can, with mind and speech at variance with each other, keep pace with a world running amok for lust and gold? So, world is like that, running after lust and gold. And how he can keep in that zone? But the limit to the power of endurance, one might say, is not the same for all. Some arguments and replies he wants to explain to us in detail so that no doubt should remain in our mind. Some become overwhelmed with a little misery or happiness, others again remain firm and steady like a rock in spite of there being a profound agitation in their hearts arising from either of them, pain or pleasure. Therefore, how can one know the limit of a man's endurance? So, from other angles, he is explaining that. In reply, let us say that his power of endurance was extraordinary. This will be very clearly understood if we reflect on the other events of his life. So, any judgment should be passed only after a totality of events, not a particular event. A particular event may happen through different causes. But when we see the totality, we understand the level of the mind. This is a common mistake people do. This will be very clearly understood if you reflect on the other events of his life. need the extraordinary endurance of the mind and body of a person like him be mentioned? A person who could remain calm in spite of being half fed or unfed and sleepless for 12 long years. Oh, I used to calculate somewhere, but it is given here. I used to think 6 years. But Saradananda Swamiji has clearly mentioned it. Yes. All this for 12 years, huh? Who could remain calm in spite of being half-fed or unfed and sleepless for 12 long years? Who rejected the offers of immense wealth as many times as they came because they were an obstacle on the path of the realization of God. So everything, the mind is very clear about things. There are innumerable other instances, but we desist from mentioning them here because that is enough. The careful reader will meet with them at every turn as he goes on with this life. So everywhere will get that. So his power of control was extraordinary. And such power could not control that. Only ignorant people and not the sadhakas regarded it as due to a disease. So now, objective judgment. Who is the judge? If he does not understand or if he understands. Saradananda Swamiji has his own style of argument, fully spiritual. Again, the above mentioned state of the master appeared to be due to a disease in the eyes of those people alone who were extremely attached to worldly objects, They could not raise a hair at all. No one except Mathur, it is clear, was then present at the Kali temple at Dakshineshwar, who could, with the help of reason and imagination, he had to stretch himself to understand that, but he could. Ascertain partially at least the mental state of the master. We, through imagination, partially could understand. We cannot say where Kenaram Bhattacharya vanished immediately after initiating the master, for nothing was heard of him from Hriday or anyone else after that event. Therefore, the ignorant, covetous officers of the Kali temple were the ignorant, not that unread. They might have studied, but they had no idea of spirituality. Ignorant, covetous officers of the Kali temple were the only persons left to judge the actions and mental states of the master at that time. Haldari was oscillating. What they said cannot at all be regarded as proof. It is therefore certain that the words of the holy men who came to Dakshineshwar at that time are the only reliable proofs of it. From what has been heard from the master and others, it is known that the sadhakas and perfected men, far from deeming him a victim of insanity, had always a very high opinion of him. The master cannot be said to have been suffering from a disease when we see his actions and behavior at this time. So first he is telling by himself, objectively, and then he will bring the testimony of the sadhakas and siddhas. When we study the events following this period, we see that he followed immediately any advice. That is another thing. Any advice given by anyone for the good of his health. The man with deranged brain never accepts that he is mad and is never accepts taking any medicine. Never accepts what the others are telling him. I have my own experience with some people like that. and they understand. One boy had come to Chandigarh, and my other people, they used to give him a pill inside the bread or something, but he could recognize it. When we study the events following this period, we see that he followed immediately any advice given by anyone for the good of his health. Till, led by the impulse of the intense eagerness for the realization of God, he completely lost consciousness of his body and of the world outside, and hence lost all care for his own life. That is what we need to say. He never tried to persist in his own resolve. When people said, let him be under treatment, he agreed. When they said that he should be taken to his mother at Kamarpukur, he readily consented. Neither again when his marriage was proposed did he dissent. So people thought by marrying he will become normal. He agreed to that also. Considering all these, how can we take his actions and behavior to have been prompted by insanity? No marriage for him, not for other sadhakas. Because he had to marry the mother of the universe for the purpose of divine Leela. Not that any sadhu should read this and misunderstand. Moreover, though he tried indeed to keep himself aloof from worldly people and worldly affairs, yes, because that will demean him. On many occasions, he not only had no objection to going and mixing with people, but eagerly sought and joined them whenever they came together to worship God and sing His glory. So selectivity is possible. Ordinary talk, gossip, he never entered, he avoided. But somebody talking of God, singing of God, he immediately went there. This is clearly seen when we find that he used to visit the temple of the 10 Mahavidyas at Bharanagar, went sometimes to pay his obeisance to the Universal Mother at Kalighat, and joined the great annual festival at Paniyati. In those places also, he sometimes met and had conversations with sadhakas well versed in the scriptures, who have understood from the little we know of these things that those sadhakas held him in great veneration. So in this connection, Vaishnava Charan is very brought now. Vaishnava Charan saw the master for the first time during the festival at Paniyati in 1859. His idea about the master. We may mention, for example, the fact of the master's visit to Paniyati during the great festival in AD 1859. We are read about Paniyati, that was with the young Bengal, and we have in detail known what is Paniyati Utsav. There on that day, but this was much before, that was 1885, and this is 1859. There on that day, he saw Vaishnava Charan, the son of Sri Utsavananda Goswami, for the first time. Some of us have heard from Hridaya and also from the master himself that he went to Paniyati and sat for some time in the Master Manimohan Sen's temple. Some typographical error. Shri Youth has become master. What we say Mr. or Esquire, that has become master. Very poorly it has been edited of the last edition. Mr. or Shri would have been enough. Shri Youth. In English also you use Shri. Honorable, you might write. Manimohan Sen's temple. Manimohan Sen's temple means temple owned by Manimohan, not that Manimohan is worshipped there. When Vaishnava Charan came and saw him, and immediately came to the definite conclusion that the master was in a high state of spirituality and that he was one of the rarest of great souls. That is what Vaishnava Charan understood. Vaishnava Charan spent on that day the greater part of his time with the master in the festival ground and purchasing at his own expense mangoes, fried rice, curds and sweets, which is generally offered there. Offered to the Lord a delicious mixture of them in earthen plates. That is the style there. What they say? There is a Bengali word for that. Malsa. Malsa. Malsa is a particular earthen plate. A delicious mixture of them in earthen plates and made merry, partaking of the prasad along with the master and the devotees. Again, while returning to Calcutta after the festival, Vaishnav Charan got down at Rani Rasmani's Kali temple for the purpose of having the privilege of seeing him again and inquired about him there. That means separated there. So Vaishnav Charan was returning and he stopped at Kali temple to inquire about them. When he was told that the master had not returned from the festival, he felt disappointed. We have described elsewhere how Vaishnav Charan met the master again 3 or 4 years later and how an intimate relationship grew up between them. That we have studied. So, this topic is concluded here, mentioning Vaishnav Charan. And so many sadhus will come and they will recognize the master, and people with ordinary level which could not rise above due to attachment, they could not understand him. So that is, and Haladari's case was tossing up and down due to ego. So we have been explained this. Om Sarvadharma Sthapakastvam Sarvadharma Swarupakaha Acharyanam Mahacharyo Ramakrishna Te Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.
Jaya